Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, a Michigan Business Network. Jeffrey Mosher sitting in for Chris Holman. No, not out on the road. I'm in our 109 East Oakland Avenue studios, just northeast of the State Capitol building in downtown Lansing, Michigan. And, well, this time around, I'm reaching out over the phone lines to Ferndale, Michigan, and Rebecca Abel, owner of Treat Dreams Dessert Emporium and Divine Cookies. Welcome to the Michigan Business Beat, Rebecca.
Thank you.
We're going to start this off. Could you share with the Michigan business community kind of your career trajectory that led to being the owner of a business in Ferndale, Michigan?
Sure. Well, the last 20 years I've spent as a financial planner, money manager, and I've always had a creative side and had different creative outlets over the years, whether they be painting or home improvement projects. And about 2 years ago, I had kind of a big interest in the Detroit food scene, so I started brainstorming how I could get involved in that arena. And I'm also very much a dessert lover, so I started brainstorming and came up with the idea of creating a cookie company locally, kind of a takeoff on some of the cookie companies I love on the East and West Coast, and started researching and putting together some recipes, and then launched my company back in December of 2017, and have gone from there, building and growing, and now have a big store in Ferndale and several food trucks, and on the way to hopefully opening up more stores.
Excellent. And so we were turned on to your story through another entrepreneur of Michigan and an individual who's also an author. And we won't necessarily get into his story, but we wanted to talk with you today here with the Michigan Business Beat regarding, building a food brand, something that some of the business community might either want to know more about or it might inspire them in their own branding. And so my first question off it would be does it take flexibility in branding?
Sure. That's a great question. It takes extreme flexibility because it's really all about what the customer wants. And so, I started out with one concept of, kind of what I liked, but then have changed several times over the last 2 years to design products that the customers want. And so you have to really be limber and flexible and be listening.
Well, excellent. Yeah, and it just kind of naturally follows, for me at least, is what role might passion play in figuring out your brand?
Sure. Well, passion is something that is extremely important in any kind of startup business. But, I've always, from the beginning, since I had the idea of starting the cookie company, this passion really took over me. And it was so much work launching this company, much, much more than I ever anticipated. But because I was so passionate about it, it fueled me through some of those really challenging times and, 14, 16-hour days, because I had this passionate drive behind creating this brand. And that's really critical in any business, I feel, because it's tough. It's long days, a big financial risk to start this up, but the passion fueled me from the beginning.
Oh, great. And hearing that, I feel that perhaps it could become kind of a point where you fall into the point of working in the business, working on the business, not knowing how to balance it. How have you dealt with that sort of an issue?
Sure. Well, that is something I'm constantly conscious of. There's a favorite book of mine called The E-Myth, and it's really about small businesses and why a lot of them fail, because a lot of the small business owners are working in their businesses versus on the business. And so I try to look at everything I do and see what can be delegated so that I can strictly work on the development and growth of this company. It's hard at times because there's always a lot of fires to put out of, things that need to be batches of cookies that, are missing. We need to whip them up, real quick. And I do a lot of that work, but I try to consciously focus on working on versus in the business.
Yes. And in that last answer, plus a little bit of your background, understanding that you're a financial planner and trying to find balance, describe how that is in being a mom and balancing everything.
Sure. It's challenging. My time is my, most valuable commodity. And so I have to be very organized I'm constantly looking at what my most important tasks are every day. And every morning I take about a half an hour and I have, a one-page list that has all of my different business. I have a couple different business ventures going. And so I prioritize and write down 4 things that are the most important things for me to do, every day in the business. And so my day starts with prioritizing, and that's really the only way for me to keep this going is to focus on only the most, urgent and important things, family being one of them, and then to try to delegate the rest and, have great employees to help me. And, it's always a challenge, but I am, working towards having that balance and feel like I do a pretty good job most days. But there's definitely days that everything's, on fire and, I don't necessarily get to tend to my priorities.
Oh, perfect. Now, you're talking about a leader, and it sounds like you're, with the E-Myth, you're a reader, and you're building a team, but it obviously can't be done alone, as you're describing. And so I imagine that key partnerships in making that evolve are important as well.
Definitely important. In starting my cookie company, from the very beginning, I was aspiring to find the right partner. And the key is finding the right partner, not just a partner, because there's partnerships that can really bring you down and others that can bring you up. So it took me almost a year to find my current business partner in this dessert world, and that's Scott Maloney, who owned an ice cream brand. And I got to know him about a year ago. And with him owning this ice cream brand and me on the cookie brand, we decided, what if we can put these two together? And him and I both have complementary strengths, and that's what I was looking for as well. Somebody that had strengths in areas that I was weak, and so it was an instant connection that, right away we knew that we would work well together as we started talking about things. And, from there we combined our forces and opened up Treat Dreams Dessert Emporium in Ferndale that houses his Treat Dreams ice cream brand, my Divine Cookies brand, and then we created a bunch of dream desserts that are our kind of house brand of 5-pound ice cream sandwiches, 14-layer cakes, huge brownies, over-the-top sundaes. And so the partnership's been great, and we're continuing to grow.
Excellent. So what you've described to me sounds like a lot of gut and instinct and research on your own. But have either of you leveraged marketing firms or companies in the region as well to enhance or synergize with your own intuitiveness?
In the beginning of starting my company, I hired a marketing consultant to help me hone in what my brand message was going to be for the cookie company. And so, working with her, I kind of learned, the concepts of marketing and branding and building your audience, and was able to translate that into my new larger business, which is Treat Dreams Dessert Emporium. So, yes, definitely had help and worked with firms in the beginning, and I'm, one of my skills is I'm a pretty quick learner, so I've taken from experts, watching what they were doing and how they were doing it so that I could then, implement it on my own, because in a startup, obviously, money's tight, and I would love to hire professionals for every single area, but some of the marketing and social media stuff are some of the most expensive dollars, and so I had to learn that and learn it from the best, and I'm now doing a lot of that myself inside of these companies.
Well, quite an interesting story for Michigan and Ferndale, but thank you so much. Rebecca, before we sign off, can you share that contact information if folks want to know more about Treat Dreams Dessert Emporium and Divine Cookies?
Sure. Yeah. So Treat Dreams Dessert Emporium is right on Woodward Avenue, north of 9 Mile. We are 22965 Woodward Avenue, open 7 days a week till 9 o'clock during the week and 10 o'clock on the weekends. We are the home of Divine Cookies, so you can find the cookies, the ice cream, and all of our dream desserts right here at Treat Dreams in Ferndale.
Wonderful. Rebecca, thank you so much for spending some time with the Michigan Business Beat today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Excellent. Once again, we've been speaking with Rebecca Abel, owner, Treat Dreams Dessert Emporium and Divine Cookies, Ferndale, Michigan, and we've been discussing building a food brand. We'll be back with more on the Michigan Business Beat on Michigan Business Network.